Hello to everyone. Good morning to everyone. I hope you're all fine. We have the fourth part of the series of our webinar, in which we want to, let's say, bring the experiences from Slovenia to Montenegro. As already mentioned, this is a project which is co-financed or no, financed by Slovenian Ministry of Economic Development and Tourism, Slovenian Ministry in cooperation with the Ministry of Economic Development and Tourism of Montenegro, and let's say, how to say, mentored or administrated by UNIDO, supported by UNIDO. And today we have the fourth topic. The object, as I said, is to bring the knowledge from Slovenia to Montenegro. And we are thrilled today to bring this fourth topic of what we have learned to creation of 3D models, to finally how to bring them to storage, to archive them, to make a sure way how to preserve them. And we have also two guests with which we want to make a kind of, let's say, conversation of how these things and how the education of these topics are in Montenegro. But for the beginning, I would give the word to Mateusz, to you, to present us the data management of 3D models. So the stage is yours.
Yeah, hi, hello, also from my side. And yes, thank you, Urška, for making this introduction. As said, in the previous sessions, we've been discussing how to do the 3D capture of a cultural heritage, and then what can be done with such a 3D model. So how it can be used in the context, especially in the context of tourism. But today we want to, in a way, go to a topic that is maybe for some the boring topic. It's the managing of this data, archiving it, storing it. So basically, making sure that the 3D models remain, that are still preserved, that are can be used for other purposes, and also, of course, that are visible to the public, especially if they have been funded by the public. So to start with, let's think about the previous sessions. We've been talking in the previous sessions about capturing the data, the 3D data on ground. We had a session with Jerne and Luca, our colleagues, and they've been presenting how this is done, but also now we have to think what all types of materials are created in that process. And then in the next session, in the previous session, we've been discussing about the digital storytelling. We've been discussing about holograms, virtual reality, augmented reality, different interactive screens. So all those media that also is producing different files in different formats that, again, we want to store and preserve long term. Today, we will mostly talk about this first phase of 3D data management, so taking care of the 3D models. So if we look at what we discussed previous times from a different perspective, when we are on site, we capture, or we, together with the hardware equipment that we're using, we capture various data in raw format. Also, the software that we are using in production of 3D models, so in capturing or processing of 3D data, is producing different types of contents. And of course, the dilemma always is, will we and other people, will they be able to reuse this content for their purposes? So it is a question of partially technical, but also of licensing. So what data is actually recorded? So if we go on ground and we use laser scanning, we get thousands of points in the point cloud, especially if we have them, and in most cases we will do multiple scans, so we will be moving around in the space with the laser scanner. So we will have multiple scans. All that data has been inserted into a software and processed there. So we have there again several data. When we are doing photogrammetry, meaning that we go on ground on the site and we capture data using drones or handheld cameras, again, we take thousands of pictures that are taken of this cultural heritage object. Again, these are imported into software. In many cases, these photos were edited before being imported into the software, and also the software is optimizing the data for its use. If there was a land surveyor who went with us on the site, and as we said, we at Arctur, we mostly only scan cultural heritage of immovable cultural heritage with a land surveyor. So we always take a land surveyor with us. The land surveyor has created lots of data, the ground and control points, the total the points in the total positioning system. So again, there we have lots of data. These data comes in different formats. Either if you talk about photos, they're either in raw format or some other formats. Again, with point clouds, they can be in different formats. And I don't want to here now explain what each of these formats is, but just to understand, for us to understand how many data is actually produced in such a project. So here then the dilemma is, okay, we've done this, we've created our 3D model, and what now? Once we have all that data analyzed, processed, and we got the final product, what do we do with everything that we did before? So what do we do with all the source materials that were there? And of course, different companies and different organizations have different practices, but we somehow we argue that we should store as much as possible, and especially the source materials are super important. Why? Because the source materials that have been processed now can be reused or reprocessed a year in the future, 2 years in the future, 5, 10, and maybe then the results will be much better because the software will improve. So the data will remain, but the software will improve, and the software will be able to process that same data into a better product. And we see that in the projects that we're doing, and we also see that our partners from across Europe are doing this, that they're reprocessing 10 years old data into much better quality results. And this is why we think it's important to store that source material. So in a way, the priority is lower for the final products because we can always repeat the process. But the priority is high, especially for the source materials. So the original data from the scans, the original data from photogrammetry, so the original photos, the original meshes, the original point clouds. So all those elements that are maybe not visible and will never be visible to the public, but those are the things that we should be storing. And of course, the 3D models that are used for different purposes are valuable. So the 3D models optimized for web viewing, or the ones optimized for 3D printing, they are valuable and they will be valuable. And of course, it's worth storing them. But again, this process can be repeated if we have the source materials with us. And of course, then arises the challenge or the question, will anyone else be able to use that data? So will we make our data according to the FAIR principles? So findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And this again is a principle, are principles that here we should follow to make sure that this data is not just stored, but is actually prepared in a way that we can reuse it later on. And this is why metadata is super important. So metadata in short is data about data. It is data about how we have produced these 3D models, what tools and software we have used, how was done the data processing, different information about the geometries, about the textures, but also not just about the process of the project, but also of the object of the process. So what is the element of the cultural heritage, from which period it is, what are the copyrights related to both the original object that was 3D captured, but also to the 3D model in which this object has been captured, different additional information, and so on. And I don't want to today go very deeply into how a metadata should be structured. So something that in cultural heritage in Europe, especially those organizations related to Europeana. Europeana is a European library. It's basically a European digital library. So those stakeholders around that platform, we are mostly using Europeana data model, which is a data model for the metadata, which specifies how the metadata should be prepared, what is required, what types of content is required, what types is very beneficial, but also some other elements for other aspects that are maybe not required, but in your case might be useful. So just to get a sense, so what is metadata is, as I said, a data about data. It basically specifies the names in different languages, where the 3D model is accessible, who is the owner of the 3D model, what is the location of the site, but also, of course, who has provided the 3D model, what are the licenses for the 3D model, and so on. So here I'm showing just a very short metadata model in XML file, but this can be expanded and also integrated with other types of contents. And why is this crucial is that because this file will be together with the 3D model in all of the further processes. So we usually, of course, we need to, once we have prepared the metadata and we have categorized our materials, we should deposit it into a place safe for archiving. And this, of course, varies across countries. So I cannot now speak for the context of Montenegro itself, but we see that basically the rules across the European countries are different. And also, of course, not all elements of cultural heritage or all types of contents about cultural heritage are subjected to the same rules. So I think here it's super important to start planning this process very early on. So this is not the last step of the project. This should happen earlier on so that we make sure that the data that we have prepared is prepared in a way that also can be stored in a safe place according to the rules that apply to this specific case. So in the case of our Arctur's 3D models, of course, we deliver the source materials also to our clients. But we often see that the clients, so the museums, the municipalities, or tourist information boards, they don't have the right infrastructure to actually store that data. So for many of our clients, we are the ones storing that data. And of course, storing such data on a hard drive is not a long-term storage. So this is far from a good practice. And we see that it is happening too many times. But a hard drive that you might have in your drawer, of course, you cannot be sure that in 2 years this will still work. So this is really not a safe way to store it. So as I said, in our case, we mostly store it with ourselves, but we also see that the different countries across Europe are either building their own systems. In some cases, the museums have their own established systems of storage such data, or the different institutions themselves have this. And then the question arises, should we publish that content also online? Because if we have created all that interesting information, at least in our opinion, it would be a loss not to share it and not to publish it online so that people can view it. We still see that in the cultural heritage sector, too often this seems to be a controversial theme, because once, of course, you open something to the public, you cannot control it so much anymore. But we believe that this should be. So, and here, of course, when we want to publish something online, of course, there is the discussion: what do we actually publish? Is it the high poly models? So models with higher numbers of polygons, or models with lower numbers of polygons. Here on the picture, you see the difference, for example, for a tree. And of course, this depends also on the use that we might foresee for this 3D model. I think we can all agree that the left 3D model of a tree is useful, but in a very different context than the right one. And of course, vice versa. And because of these differences that we might have in our 3D models, it's also worth to consider that different platforms, different hosting platforms, are appropriate for different types of materials or for different uses, so for different needs. So the main challenge in that process of publishing 3D content online, of course, is not publishing the textual data or the photos of it, but publishing the actual 3D model. Because the 3D models are usually larger files that cannot be just opened without any specialized viewer. So contrary to photos that can be basically viewable from any device according to the agreed standards across the industry, with 3D models, this has not happened yet. So there are several 3D viewers that enable opening and visualizing a 3D model online within a browser. So these tools are either software, open source softwares that you can deploy on your infrastructure, So such an example could be a 3D Hub, which is an open source 3D viewer that you can host on your infrastructure, and it is then part of your website or your platform. Or for example, Smithsonian, the American museums have their own 3D viewers that also can be used for such purposes. But this, of course, applies only if you have the infrastructure where you can host it and where you will also host your 3D models. But of course, in a sector of tourism and cultural heritage, usually the organizations don't have such infrastructure, and in many cases also it is not also viable or sustainable for them to actually have such an infrastructure. And this is why many of them are then using hosting platforms, which of course are either commercial and non-commercial. So maybe to give you an example, so here, what do we mean with this? So this is a hosting platform from Arctur, that we have developed, that we have been developing since 2022. It is a platform for hosting 3D models, where one can upload a 3D model and then visualize it to the public, basically through their browser. So the user does not need any special hardware, not any special software. Basically, everything works in a browser. So here I'm just showing you such an example. So this is a viewer of a 3D model, and you can rotate the 3D model, zoom in, zoom out. It has a possibility of annotations that are not visible here. It has this possibility of embedding, so you can embed a 3D model from this website into another website, your own website, for example. And in this case also it can have some description and so on. Of course, behind the scene, what is happening is that the 3D model needs to be uploaded somewhere. And now this is a process where I try to show you how important all the previous steps of my presentation today are. So, what you're now seeing is basically the backside of what we saw earlier. It's where we prepare all that data, and what we are actually here filling into these fields is the metadata that I have been discussing previously. It is the same metadata that we've discussed previously. So this is why it's super important that the 3D model has that metadata, so that every time we share it, we can use it. So here, maybe I'm showing just some examples of some functionalities that the 3D viewers usually have. So it is adding different lighting in the 3D model. This is something, what you see here is adding annotations. So annotations are basically smaller comments that are specific to a certain point within the 3D model, and that can be part of this storytelling and presentation of the 3D model to the public. So this is our platform that was intended basically with the intention of being user friendly, and of course supporting the files that are usually used in this context, but also to be integrated with Europeana. So this is our vision for our 3D viewer was to especially visualize large 3D models, because this is often the problem that we've encountered ourselves, is that the 3D models of large buildings are usually also large 3D models. And many of other tools did not support larger 3D models. They only supported the compressed versions, but we wanted to avoid this compression in between, and this is why we decided that we need to develop our own 3D model, and that we want to have a tool that will have some basic functionalities already integrated in it. And these basic functionalities could be measuring the distances, measuring the heights, surfaces, angles. So different elements within the 3D model without the need to have a special software installed on your computer. And as I said, from 2022, we've been developing this tool that supports various programs, various formats. So this is just one example, and later on I can show also some others or mention some others. But the main challenge or the main task ahead of us is something that is already coming, because so far we've been discussing doing this for one project, so for one 3D model for one site. But imagine that there would be thousands of such projects, or even tens of thousands. And this is something that the European Commission actually has recommended for the all European states. Of course, not yet for Montenegro, but once you join European Union, probably something similar will apply to you as well. So what you see here are basically the KPIs for 3D models that need to be scanned and ingested into the European data space for cultural heritage by 2025, so this year, sorry, or 2030. I think there is zero country that has achieved those goals, because they're super ambitious. And this ambition, I think it also shows the direction in which the European Commission wants the member states to go, to really scan a lot of cultural heritage, not only in 2D, but in 3D as well. So the process that we've been discussing in the previous sessions should be done on thousands of examples, tens of thousands actually, and this is of course a big endeavor that is still ahead of us. Before I mentioned another, that there are of course also other platforms for storing and visualizing 3D content. One such example is Sketchfab, which is a commercial provider from the US, from the United States, partially owned by the Chinese large corporation Tencent, and through that also part of the Epic Games, so the largest development of computer games. And for example, this is a platform that is also widely popular among cultural heritage institutions across the world, not only in Europe, and of course presents a very nice solution to visualize 3D models. But what we are always stressing is that we have to understand that such platforms are not storage. They are social media. So they are not a tool to store your 3D models in a safe space. They, just like you are not storing your photos on Instagram. Instagram is not a place where you store your photos. They're just Instagram is a way where you showcase your best photos to the world. So and again, here we have to understand this in a similar way. Also, what is rising, what dilemma is rising within the cultural heritage sector in Europe in the last year is the question of licensing. So make sure that you really read the tiny text in the licensing, because you don't want your 3D model of your site to appear in a computer game that is maybe representing your cultural heritage in a wrong way. And I'll give you an example. A 3D model of David could appear in a porn movie. And of course, we don't want this to happen. But if the 3D model of David is shared wrongfully, this might happen legally, actually legally. So it's very important where we store the 3D models, and of course also under what licenses these 3D models are stored. So one option of showcasing your 3D models online is through Europeana. I've mentioned several times today already Europeana. Europeana is a European digital library that started as a primarily library for 2D content, but is now expanding into 3D as well. So it is hosting 60 million items. Most of them are 2D. There are a few thousand in 3D. And this is a platform that is, in a way, truly European in a sense that it has an aggregator, so a middleman in every member state. So every member state has a national aggregator that is collecting data from the country museums and archives and so on, and it is ensuring that this data goes into Europeana equipped with metadata and so on. So I believe that in Montenegro there is no national aggregator yet. This does not mean that you cannot be part of Europeana, because there, besides the national aggregators, there are also thematic aggregators. So these are organizations that are not limited to working in their own country, but are limited to working to some themes. So there is, for example, Fotoconsortium that mostly works with photographic materials across Europe. Or there is Carrare, which is mostly working with archaeological and architectural content, again, from across Europe. And through those, you can, or your cultural heritage can be part of such a platform. What is currently already also developing is, in a way, a substantial upgrade to the Europeana, which is a common European data space for cultural heritage, which will be a data space that will enable sharing and exchange of contents about cultural heritage between different institutions. So here the model is still being shaped, but it might be a bit different than previously discussed. So maybe there will not be those aggregators in between, or they might have a slightly different role. But this is an initiative that is just being developed. So maybe if you want to follow up, you can also check more about that thing. And lastly, I would want to maybe present an example that we did for Slovenia of how to showcase the 3D content. It is a website DIDK, so digital innovation of cultural heritage in Slovenian, of course, digitalno inoviranje kulturne dediščine, which is a portal that we have developed for the Ministry of Technology. And it is a portal that showcases all the 3D models that have been done in an initiative done by the ministry. There is also different multimedia content that have been created in that process. So videos, links to virtual reality experiences, links to tourist information. And what is especially relevant in that project or in that platform is that the ministry understood that it is important to share data also in raw formats, meaning that you can, through that platform, you can reach the owners and you can access the original files, and you can reuse those original files in your own project. And what we see basically is happening is that schools, startups, different enthusiasts are reaching out and reusing that 3D models either for their own personal purposes or for wider initiatives. So for their own projects that they're developing, either touristic projects that they're developing. In some cases, they reuse those contents for the hackathons that they're organizing. So also these are different ways how to increase this whole industry that is developing out there. We are also, just to mention, developing a similar tool for the Ministry of Culture of Slovenia. It is a storing solution for the Ministry of Culture, so that because they realized, or they acknowledged that the 3D models that have been created across the country are not saved in one spot. They're not stored in one place, which is a problem because nobody really knows what has already been done. And in many cases, they are also repeating the same process that have already been done. So they decided to collect everything in one space. This will be a platform that we are developing and will be launched in mid of the next year that will enable them, the ministry, but also the wider public to see those 3D models. So that was my going through the whole topic of scanning, of starting with the data from the scans, the digital capture, to finally publishing it online. As I said, in many of those cases, your own national or organizational procedures might apply. And I think what's my key message is, or my key messages are, store as much as it's possible, and also share with others as much as it's possible. And with that, Urška, I would conclude and give the floor back to you.
Thank you, Mateusz, for all this information. It's every time it's interesting for me also to follow and to learn how things evolve. We were mentioning the data space. This is this initiative now within the European Union where different data spaces are created, one with cultural heritage, but we are involved also in tourism and also in media. And each data space is trying to define, own needs for the sector, but then all together should become one, one space, one market, one-stop shop, whatever, where the data will be connected in an easy exchangeable form through connectors and simple legal, let's say, rules, so that everyone from the smallest players in the ecosystem to all bigger institutions could then exchange for different purposes. But as Mateusz mentioned, this is yet growing. What we would like to do now is I would like to introduce our guests, Ms. Bojana Sterniša from the Polytechnic faculty of UDG and Mr. Ivan Cetkovic from the Faculty of Culture and Tourism. We invited them together today to have a kind of, just relaxed conversation. If you have any questions, please just raise your hands to first explore a little bit what is already there for those who are interested to learn about these topics. Who wants to start, Bojana or Ivan, just to show what are you already doing at your faculties in embracing the topics of digitalization of cultural heritage?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Urška, for giving us the floor to talk a little bit about this topic from our perspective. I will talk from the perspective of the Faculty of Polytechnics that we have at UDG. I will briefly introduce with the faculty for those that don't know the subjects that we are doing there. Faculty of Polytechnics is a combination of architecture and civil engineering. And we have architects and civil engineers that are also working in the area of digitalization of cultural heritage from the perspective of modeling and rendering the digital cultural heritage. And we have one subject related to that area at the second year for our students. The name of the subject is Introduction to Modern Technologies. And we use that subject to present students the theoretical knowledge of the digitalization of architectural heritage mostly, but it's related to the cultural heritage as well. And we use that subject also to have the internationalization of different subjects from the faculties related to this area. And next week, we will have an online session from the Politecnico di Bari, since they are also using photogrammetry and digitalization and BIM technologies in the area of cultural heritage and architectural heritage as well. So we will have one online session next week related to recording and digitalization of architectural heritage, methodologies, techniques, and applications. And later on, in 2 weeks, we will have a workshop on site, since the architect from the Politecnico di Bari will come also to UDG and do those exercises with our students. So this is our experience and how we are approaching the area of digitalization in cultural heritage and architectural heritage as well.
Thank you. Ivan, from your side?
So from my side, I come from Faculty of Culture and Tourism here at the University of Donja Gorica, and essentially we have a study program which is named Culture and Tourism, where students explore cultural heritage throughout the course. That's also called Cultural Heritage 1, 2, 3, and 4. They get the theoretical part, so theoretical knowledge of the classes, and they also get the practical part by visiting all of these sites that have cultural heritage. They did not have a chance to implement the 3D part of the cultural heritage, and I believe it would really improve our curriculum, especially when it comes to the practical training. I think the students would be very interested to participate in the project and actually visit all of these sites and see how it is to preserve all of these monuments, which, of course, just geographical location and also weather conditions can influence these sites, and they can degrade them in the future. So this would be amazing for preserving them and valorizing them. Also, our students participate in different projects that are related to cultural heritage. So they get experts, national and international experts. They get their guest lectures. They discuss the improvement of the cultural heritage and also how to preserve it in the future.
Thank you, Ed. So if we come now to the topic of today, what's your experience in storage of 3D models? How do you do this at the university? And what is your knowledge about the situation in Montenegro?
Okay, I will start with this question. Since architects and civil engineers really need a lot of storage for all the models, and especially digitalized models related to cultural heritage and related to photogrammetry, we don't have a specific space at our faculty that we use for the storage, and I think that would be very useful for us, and I think that it's very important. But our students use their own storage memory for their models, since they use their own laptops in order to work with these exercises. So for now, we just use the storage related to the laptop memories and the storage for students. We don't have external storage where they can save the files. At Faculty of Polytechnics. I don't know.
The same goes for Faculty of Culture and Tourism. Essentially, our students use their own phones, their own cameras to capture the sites, and then later on write reports regarding the sites that they visited. So they upload it to the professor, but there is not an official space where we can keep all of those materials.
So actually, Mateusz, we are just thinking loud. Actually, as it started in Slovenia, because we had, the projects, R&D projects, and then we just suggested this to the government, and this is how this thing, step by really small steps, was growing. Would be maybe appropriate also for your country, right? To make a kind of suggestions of the stakeholders in the ecosystem who are educating, using, and would be willing to use it, to propose a kind of storage that would allow them to preserve this kind of files. But Mateusz, how did?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because think it through. So every student that goes on site and scans a cultural heritage creates a capture of that site in that moment, and you cannot repeat that later on. So even though if it is students who are learning, so they're not professionals yet, they have captured something that could be used in the future by them or by another organization or by another expert, because it is this data about this cultural heritage that maybe in 10 days it will not be like this anymore. Imagine earthquakes, floods, all those things where basically we need to preserve digital elements of that cultural heritage. So that's why I think it's super important that all such data would be stored in an organized way at a central place. Also, something that we did not mention yet, but the potential of the using AI on those materials is growing basically day by day. The tools for the use of for the AI tools for 3D are, of course, a bit behind the tools for video generation and photo generation, but they're evolving super fast. And these AI tools already enable creation of three-dimensional visual representations, not yet especially of 3D models, but different types of visual representations, three-dimensional visual representations. And could basically work on that material, even though it would be not finished projects, draft student homework, so all that materials. And now I'm only talking about the student work. Also, of course, all the official finalized projects from different municipalities, from archaeological firms, from scanning of the sites during the construction site, because often, for example, when I construct on a construction site, also the civil engineers might be using 3D scanning to capture the site, for example, the renovation of an old building or so on. So all that material is being placed in one central place, or at least in a place where, or in a way that you can find them, even though they're not stored in the same place, they're accessible from the same place, would be valuable.
Why we like doing this debate is because one of the results of this project we would like to do it is that also just gather the ideas and the needs that are there to kind of structure them and forward them to the ministry, because I have to say we have really a great collaboration with your ministry. They were supporting this project so far very fondly, and we would like to make sparks and bring ideas that you see that it has to come from your side, to give the good ideas, and then the government can follow and build on that. But what would you say, Bojan and Ivan, when you were talking, like we were talking about Europeana and this contact to European projects, how do you see this from your side? Now Montenegro is not yet part of European Union, but you are on the way there. You are eligible for some projects already, so this is a kind of funding that could be also taken into consideration. Are you already active in this? Last week we learned one of the EU projects that is already taking place. But from your side, do you have other projects from this topic, from this area?
So the two projects that we have at the Faculty of Culture and Tourism are the European Heritage Days, which is a traditional project here at the faculty, and it's organized every year. Each year it's featuring a new theme, so new focus. And then we have all of our students at the faculty participating in those workshops, essentially brainstorming, getting guest lectures from experts. And we also have STETSI, which is a Horizon project, international project, which is aimed at developing innovative and stable strategies for protecting the cultural heritage, and also focus on the future of the medieval tombstones or steci and similar stone monuments across the Europe. So in Montenegro and also the rest of the Europe. Essentially, as Matej already mentioned, so climate change, natural hazards, pollution, and so on.
And this info, the days that you were mentioning, is this open to the public or?
For the previous one, the European Heritage Days, we only had our students come to the workshops, but in future it can be open to public. We have the resources to host more people.
So maybe we can start a kind of, small community which can grow, and by sharing, information, what is going on, that also other can join. Right, Bojana, before we were discussing also about your webinar, there is the possibility that we can share the link.
Yes, of course. I think that would be very useful. And I wanted to say that our professors and experts in the area of cultural heritage, architects mostly, are also included in those activities that Ivan told us about, activities related to the projects from the Faculty of Culture and Tourism. So I think it would be very good to invite everyone who is expert in the area or interested in this area. I think it would be good, and I think that they are open for everyone, as well as our webinar. Of course, we can share the link, and you can share it with others who would be interested.
Because this is the spirit with which I think, Mateusz, right? This is good to approach this area, because it's a lot of, public interest, but also companies who are doing, but yet this is our, history, this is our culture. And if we all, bring in what we can from each own side, then this is how the development can go on. And this is also invitation to everyone. There is any question from other? Not yet. But there are two things that I will say is, one is really to invite all of you. You have our email address. Really just share your first information about what you are doing. If it's not accessible to back, doesn't matter. Also information, what is happening is already something that just for others in the community to know it. And the second is, if you have, there is one more workshop taking place, then it will be end of spring next year, for which we really want to gather your inputs, your wishes, how do you want us to organize that? Because, for us, it's really, it's our wish to make something which is useful for the ecosystem. So tell us, what would you like to learn? This will be on site physically, right? We can make a cooperation with different partners, see what is best, for Montenegro to take place. And still, we think it's in June, but if we can organize it in advance, because now everything in this project was really happening very fast and very quick. But for now, we have time, we can prepare, we can then share, see how to organize it. Please really reach out, and we will send you per email all this information and links, but please share with us your ideas. Anyone else want to ask something? Yes, please.
Greetings to you all once again. I've listened, of course, to the presentation of Matej and also our colleagues from the UDG. Of course, there are some difficulties in Montenegro when it comes to the resources we have as academic community to digitalize our research. Ivan mentioned Steci. That is one of the projects I'm also included with colleague Vedran, who is also here at the webinar. I would like to just ask Matej and you, so you already mentioned some things that Slovenia went through. You were in the same position, and then things started becoming better and better. Now that you've been in Montenegro and seen the existing resources we have in country, not European Union, just we have in Montenegro, can you suggest maybe some pathways or ways that we can start improving the component of digitalization of cultural heritage right now in this moment? What we can do, maybe what we can realize the strategies of digital storytelling or something that we can start moving to a better place right now in this moment? So that's my question. Thank you once again for this presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mateusz, you want to?
Yeah, maybe if we somehow stay within the topic of today's session, what I see is that, of course, many things are already happening in Montenegro. And of course, naturally, because like we said, you have educational programs on that. What would be worthwhile is to put everything in one place and to coordinate among those activities to have things centrally presented. We see, because also in Slovenia, it is still partially that way, that different ministries approach all things differently, and they only, in a way, look at their segment of the story, even though everything is connected together. So I think that would be not necessarily a learning from Slovenia, because Slovenia has not done this fully yet. But I think the earlier you start, the better. So all those initiatives that are, and the results of those initiatives that are, to coordinate them and to put them in the materials in one place. Because like I said, it will help anyone new that is starting or that wants to upgrade. It will help them tremendously to have access to everything. To give an example, when we were doing the 3D models, often we got a comment, this was already done 10 years ago. And we had no idea who has done it, what was actually done, are the files available, who to even contact about that. So everything was, unknown. And as someone who just comes to the site and wants to do the 3D model, to capture the site, it would be very valuable to have that information, not to cheat and let's say, oh, it was already done, we should not do it. No, but to have a baseline. So to compare what we do now with what was 10 years ago. Also, this would help us to understand how our cultural heritage is changing. Maybe the atmospheric conditions are, of course, changing the cultural heritage. So it would open new possibilities to research that are now just not possible. Urška, I don't know if there is any learning.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like, but just starting to talk between different people who are involved in this is the beginning. What helped us is that we were leading one of the largest R&D projects in the country. So we have been already connecting within this project different partners. And this R&D, if you have an official project, it's easier then to have a kind of, the other take you seriously. You already have projects, it's not just somebody woke up in the morning and started to deal with it. You have something which is officially UDG or other institutions are already official institutions. And what we will do from our side, we will start just gathering these very simple ideas. And I would say, please, let's take advantage of this project to bring more and more ideas, invite those who you know, and then we have the starting point. And then from there, I'm sure that the ministry will be willing to make a suggestion or think of, and our final event, there will be this workshop and the final event where we will have the conclusions and have the results of these projects is for sure a place where we can have it's not the end, it's the beginning of something new, right? For the May, June, let's say, when this will take place. Okay, so please, really, just be in contact with us, communicate, and then we can share and make this, once this starts the way, then it goes. Yeah, so, but it starts with communication and sharing information. And then, any other questions? No? So then I would say for today, thank you very much for your attention. We are really happy that we are, I would say, finished the first part of this series, but we are really, really excited to see what we can prepare for you for this final workshop. So share with us the information and have a nice day. Thank you for
Thank you.
following us.
Thank you so much.
You